right, welcome everyone to a very exciting virtual discussion between Lefty Production Company and Deaf Athletic on what better day than 3/3 World Hearing Day and the launch day of this new brand. So exciting and great to be with everyone on this call. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's a super exciting day, and you've had such a pivotal role in the development of this brand that's coming to life. So we're going to jump in and have a really exciting conversation. But before I do, I want to just properly introduce Lefty Production Company and share a bit for those who don't know. So Lefty Production Team has worked with designers, fashion brands, and retailers of what sounds like all sectors and sizes. I know you all have worked with the likes of Rosetta Getty and Christian Siriano from the fashion world, Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus. And then there's music giants like Guns N' Roses and sports competition specials with networks like NBC and Netflix. Wow, that's quite the span. I'm so excited to get into more of the details of the work you do. But to properly introduce you both, and then I'll hand it over, and I'd love to hear more of your stories from your own voices. But Marta Miller, co-founder and CEO of Lefty Production Company, and Kyla Sayre, Chief Strategy Officer. Welcome, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Thank
having
you.
us.
And of course, we have Dennis Heathfield here, founder and CEO of Deaf Athletic. Hey, Dennis.
Hey there, Claire.
All
Great to
right.
be here. This is an exciting development here, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It really is. Well, let's just go back to the beginning and take it from the start. Always love hearing about the origin story of a company. Marta and Kyla, can you tell us more about how Lefty Production Company came to be?
Yeah, so I was Deaf Athletic pretty much. Different brand. But I had really high hopes of entering the fashion space and pursuing being a brand myself. I found it's a very difficult industry from everything from sales and marketing to getting into stores and wholesale. And it's kind of a hard industry to like weasel your way into, especially when you're really small. But I never really had, it was a challenge, the other things, to get into stores and to have people, take a chance on my brand. But I was always able to accomplish that. But finding a supply chain that I could trust was like impossible. And it ultimately ended up that I just literally out of mere frustration from having money stolen from me when I would go overseas. We had money stolen from an Indian supplier, a Chinese supplier. We went to Peru with production and I ended up having to like live in Peru in my early 20s by myself for many, many months because every time we would leave the factory, they would just take our stuff off the machine and they just completely did not care about our POs. And we were shipping to Target. So it
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
like I was shipping to some small boutique. But it was still, I just kept getting the sense that every factory had the same feeling like, well, when you're bigger, we'll pay attention to you. And I didn't feel like anybody wanted to like ride with me as I got bigger. So I really started the company just feeling like I needed to control it myself. Brought everything kind of in-house under one roof. Have ran production domestically in America since 2005. I started running production in America. Um, and I always say that if you know how to run production in America, you can run it anywhere. And so I kind of brought in like the pattern making, the sample making, the marking and grading, the sewing, everything under one roof, because I wanted that ultimate control myself. And then when you build a factory, you have to keep it busy. So I would have friends that were like, hey, I have, 1,000 t-shirts I need to make. Would you make them for me? And I kind of kept getting, into this position where I had a friend that also needed a pattern, so I would make it for them. So we started kind of also building out the side of the business where we were helping other brands. And in 2016, I kind of came to the realization that I love being a designer, um, but I really like making things. And I really started to realize about myself that it it wasn't about just like I didn't really it didn't even always matter if it was fashion or not. I just like the process of making products. Having a vision and executing it, I just think is very cool. And so in 2016, I bought the company from my business partner, and I had to kind of just do some soul searching on where I would stand as a sole owner. And my husband was like, why don't you, if this is what you like, and you're more passionate about this part, just focus on that. And it was a big thing because we at that time had about like I think 7 or 8 in-house brands that we had built over many years. So I kind of walked away from that side of the business and took a chance. And it turns out a lot of people did need this like this type of help and this ability. And to this day, we don't charge to talk to us. I think my team thinks I'm silly sometimes, but it's one of those things where I really think that as you build a business and it becomes bigger than yourself, the company now is, I think, larger than me. You kind of have to always hone into why you're here, like especially as you build a company and you find yourself, talking to an insurance company and you're like, how did I get here? Why am I talking to an insurance company? Or this isn't like what I set out to do, right? As the business grows and evolves, you find yourself in positions that you didn't necessarily see for yourself, right? And so I think it's really important that you always can anchor into why did you build this and what are you trying to achieve? And so my why is always kind of like remembering this, 26-year-old child that was trying to do something and got met with so much resistance, so many people telling me it was impossible, so many people telling me that my orders weren't big enough, they weren't large enough, they couldn't help me, they'd help me in the off season, things that weren't going to help me build my brand, and really wanting to be that for a brand new brand, as well as large brands that we work with.
Wow. That's
kind of
so,
what we Kind of how we started this thing.
yeah, that's so inspiring. And I'm even just thinking about when I introduced you and talked about the fashion sector all the way to, these sports competitions and the idea that what you offer and the entrepreneurs and the brands that you work with, it really takes you to so many different places and you're able to activate something for a lot of businesses that are met with a lot of blockades, a lot of no's, and just the way you tell that story and communicate that why. I mean, Kyla, I imagine how that strategy has come to life has really made all the difference for Lefty in this evolution.
Absolutely. And I've been working for Lefty for the last 4 years coming up on. So it's been so amazing the whole time. And we've grown so much. And even the 4 years that I've been there, we started with just domestic production when I started working there. And now we have a whole overseas team as well, just giving everybody so many more opportunities and setting brands up for success even better. So as the world changes, we kind of change with it, which is awesome. And it makes the world of a difference to work for a company that believes in something and has such a great motive behind what they're doing. And Def Athletic is a prime example of that. Like, y'all have such a good cause, such a good need, and you're not from the fashion industry. Like, why should you know how production works, what fabric's the best choice, how many units run? Like, these are all so many questions that you can't Google, you can't figure it out. Nothing's going to pop up online. But we know when we want to support you. And I know that startups are definitely our love language, and we love seeing people grow. And just from going from a sketch to seeing samples is such like a beautiful, magical moment because you're like, oh my gosh, it's here, it's done, like this is made. It's really a product that can be sold. And this is something also that's going to change a lot of people's lives and support a really great cause. So I think it's awesome across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why Kyla earned the title that she has is she has really been able to help me roll with the punches, right? We're dealing with, the world, from 2020 to now has just, I think, been a world where nobody feels like we can ever predict the next moment in time, and what it's going to hold and how it's going to affect a brand or affect commerce or how it's going to change things. And so we've really had to be extremely nimble, um, in order to be nimble for our brands because our brand needs are continuously evolving as well. Sometimes our brands are like, I wasn't anticipating it, but I'm super busy and I didn't plan for that. How can you help me? And, I have too much inventory. We're really trying to help them navigate because a lot of our brands are privately funded. And so, Kyla has really been able to kind of help me problem solve in order to really hear what people are needing at this exact moment in time. And pre 2020, I never changed anything. Like we had a system, everybody like worked within it. It was just kind of, we didn't really, I mean, we were helpful, but we didn't have to constantly pivot. And you know post 2020, that's just not the way the world works. And so Kyla's instrumental in helping make sure that we're offering, because she's the one listening to people's needs, and really making sure we're offering that for everybody.
Yeah.
We get inspired so easily. Marta and I'll just call her, and be like, hey, I have an idea. And she's like, oh no, what's your idea?
And I'm like,
She's
there's so
all
many times
in.
where I'm like, okay, put a pin in it. We'll discuss this in a few months. And then like next week, I'm like, all right, back to that idea. Like,
Yeah.
That's great.
yeah.
I mean, Kyla, I love hearing you describe that idea of this magical process, especially when something goes from being an idea or maybe a sketch on paper and becomes something more. And I think that's the perfect way to pivot into more about the Lefty and Deaf Athletic collaboration. I mean, Dennis, do you want to share a bit about how you came together, how you found Lefty and knew it was the right partnership?
Yeah, for sure. So, uh, we started with this idea that was in need of people to help bring it to life. And obviously, one of the things that we needed to have is somebody that could help us sort of finish the design and development process of the whatever garments we were going to make, and be able to make them for us. And the essential things about Deaf Athletic are, first of all, the garment is meant to keep the athlete safe, so it's serving a purpose, and we do that through colors, the color choices that we make primarily, and then the logo informs people also that the person wearing the garment is hard of hearing or deaf. Um, and so we had to have a cool logo to say that, just putting the word deaf out there. So we came up with a cool logo. But the third thing we needed was high quality, high performance, because people, yeah, you can buy into the idea of safety and you can like the logo, but you also have to have a terrific, a terrific piece of gear. So I went searching, and I had a lead on a company in Europe that I reached out to, and they presented themselves as somebody that was interested in helping startups. And I reached out, didn't hear anything, reached back out a couple more times. And finally they said, well, we're not really in a position to help startups right now.
Right.
So, um, so I went back to, just kind of primary research on the internet, and I identified a few companies that I thought might be able to help. But Lefty was the one that really stood out. And the things that, kind of spoke to me about how Lefty presents themselves in, in your websites and social media is, um, first of all, being very welcoming of startups and being able to understand, what that's all about. Being able to provide all of the things I needed from, helping to finish the design to actual production. Um, your sustainable practices, obviously that's important to me. But the most important thing was not something that was said per se, but just a feeling I got about the culture
No.
and the personality of the company. And Marta, your whole story that you tell in various ways. And so the moment of truth was on November 1st of 2024 when I met Kyla for the first time. And Kyla perfectly represented everything I was feeling about Lefty. Uh,
No.
and then
Makes me so happy.
a few days later, Kyla and I met along with Cassidy and got the whole process going. And in that time, I think you had mentioned Deaf Athletic to Marta. And then we found out there was whole connection with Aunt Enid and the No Limits Foundation. So just it's almost magical. It's fortunate, I would say,
No.
how we came together. And the process has been uh, breathtaking. That's a term
No.
I'll use. But we've got our samples now, and we'll get those exactly where we want them, and then we'll be off to full-time production here, hopefully pretty soon.
That's so awesome. And just to kind of, it was crazy. Kyla was like, I have this, I talked to this guy. He's so amazing and I love his idea. And, I always think that a brand that has like a safety component to it is so, like so interesting. And it kind of fills more than just a fashion need. Right. And I was like, she's like, you're going to love this one. And I was like, wait, do you even know that like, so my great aunt Enid is turning 102 in March. And our family has been very big supporters of her because she has really was born deaf and has really blazed a path of she has a trust and she has sent so many people to a school called No Limits, and she helped set up a school called No Limits, which is a wonderful program. I've been to so many of their plays. She currently, still to this day, makes and sews the costumes for the kids. And it's just an incredible program and she's volunteered in this space her her entire life. And just kind of has written a book, and she is also was the animator for Porky Pig and Bugs Bunny, and was the animator
So
at Warner
cool.
Brothers.
So cool.
Yeah. And I think she was the first deaf employee at Warner Brothers. And
Unbelievable.
she got hired because all the male animators went to war. And so they needed female animators. And so she was hired, and she is just one of the coolest, most inspiring people I know. And we love her very much. So as soon as you said this, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to
And I
be
had no
involved.
idea. It sounded
Yeah.
so magical to me too, because I talked to Dennis and then I called you and I'm like, wow, this is like a match made and it's perfect. And it made me so excited and happy to come back to you and be like, okay, we're more than just supporting you here. Like we have so much behind you and we believe in this vision too, which is just so extra special in my opinion.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's an awesome cause.
It's amazing, even hearing you talk about the No Limits Foundation and thinking about some of the language that's core to the Deaf Athletic brand of, defy your quiet, designed to defy your own limits. It's just so kindred, and I think there's something to be said for businesses and organizations leading with their values and letting that be a way to find common currency and connection with other businesses. But in this case, it's also like, gosh, there's just a little bit of magic and
Yeah.
extraordinary alignment going on. It's
That's why
really
I
cool
drink
to
my
hear
coffee
about.
out of this cup that says, "Follow your dreams, they know the way." I
That's
try
great.
to start my day with some type of like, there's always a bigger universe out there. And I think any entrepreneur is going to be faced with really hard things. I think being an entrepreneur is it can be a hard and it can also be a lonely exercise. Because a lot of entrepreneurs maybe have a small team to really rely on, or maybe they're only, a sole on they're starting it all by themselves. So I think just kind of keeping up the, momentum and the manifesting and kind of knowing that you have this like magical team that's like a part of you, even though it's not like owned by you or anything like that. It's still kind of like a partner that really is going to cheer you on throughout the entire time is really like an important quality because we've had brands that they've had a softer launch than they anticipated. Like there's just a lot of emotions that go into building something that you believe in and love, and it's like your baby. And, there's a lot of emotions that go out into putting that into the world, right? And so I think having a supportive team behind you is just super important.
Yeah, if I can build on that, Marta, the 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 thing that I've realized is that even though I obviously think that we have a really cool idea here, I've realized that there's no way I can really put it out there unless I'm willing to basically turn over certain aspects of bringing it to life to other people. And much like I've done with Claire and Walt with all of the creative pieces of what we're doing, sort of turning over, the development and production to Lefty comes with, there's a little bit of fear, but
Hmm.
initially, but what I've come to appreciate is the assuredness and the confidence I feel in I've got a great partner here.
Oh,
And
good.
that like any relationship, there's going to be, bumps in the road here and there, but as there should be, because if there's not, that means one or the other party isn't pushing the other hard enough.
Or
Uh,
communicating.
but
Yeah. Yeah. You
um,
kind of have to go through a little bit of, you got to communicate through it, right? I always say
that's
that
right.
it's almost like a marriage. Like I always tell people, like, be picky with your partner, right? Because there's like, it's very wasteful to do the process a lot of times, right? Like if you were to start the process over again, right? Like it's hard to translate from one manufacturer to another. So I always tell people like
Yeah.
feel good about that decision. Like it can't be a decision based on like $1.50. Like it has to be a decision based on so much more than that, right? Like there's so many other soft properties
Yeah.
that you need to feel good about besides like, you know, like a, a dollar or $2 difference. Like it's just there's more than money in this position or in this partnership. It just has to be for it to like, because it's a hopefully a long time partnership, right? And it should be beneficial to all parties, right? So I
Yeah.
always say I think it's good that you took your time, you explored, you spoke to many people. Um, you know, we want brands that also want to be here too, right? So I think everybody wants just a good experience and to enjoy their days ultimately.
Well, and I feel you so well said, such a powerful partnership. And I think you can feel that in just the way you share in your mission and you share your values, but you can also feel it in the product, right? And that's what matters most to the customer, that we're putting out something that's, safer and, really aids in their performance and is communicating a really important message. So two companies who are looking at industries differently, pushing for progress. And I love that we're celebrating it all on World Hearing Day. I know we're short on time, so I want to say thank you so much. This was incredible.
I do believe that clothes have karma and they should be,
Ooh,
made with integrity and sustainability and all of these things. So, that message will resonate in your product and it'll, your customers will feel it too. So I'm happy you chose us.
wonderful.
You
Me
took us.
too.
So, all right.
Thank you.